So it's like if you're even Disney can't market to everyone now. I saw someone, I've been complaining about the lack of romance in Disney movies, Disney princess movies in particular, for several years now.
You didn't dig Sven and the reindeer?
No.
Or Kristoff and the reindeer? I think the reindeer's name was Sven.
The reindeer is Sven. But I've started to, especially after Wish, where we saw the deleted fan art, not fan art, but the concept art of a romance between Asha and the Starboy. And a villain couple. I've started seeing more people go, Disney, you have not given us a straight love story in a long time. I saw someone say the last one, technically, and this isn't including Elemental, because Elemental is Pixar, I believe,
right?
And it's not a Disney princess movie. Technically, the last Disney princess romance was Tangled in 2010, so it's been 14 years.
Oh yeah,
because again, Anna and Kristoff don't really count because it's not a romance, it's not a love story.
Wasn't there a romance in, it was kind of a side plot, but that one Strange Worlds?
Not a Disney princess movie.
Well, okay. I would argue maybe it's a Disney Prince movie, but I mean, they did have they sort of led up to the older grandpa being okay with the grandson being gay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I do know, I've seen the data that says Gen Z and younger millennials don't want romance in their stories as much. They want more stories about friends.
Yes and no. Obviously, they're two different audiences, though.
Exactly.
And I think
you gotta do both. You gotta have shows for people who want that. You gotta have shows for people who don't. And that's when I start, English literature background, start questioning the term romantic, because romantic or romance movement has two meanings.
Yeah,
because the romantic period was about big emotions, being overwhelmed by emotions, not necessarily good, that just overwhelming, wanderer above the sea of fog, that kind of thing. And I do think that that's one of the things that I bounce off these the Buffy to Twilight continuum. Oh God, it's all vampires. Interesting, but it's not at all about vampires.
Vampires turned into werewolves, turned into angels, briefly turned into mermaids, and then turned into fairies.
I got so confused there because Angel was a character on Buffy who was it's all the same thing. It's all just things that can have like energy sex or blood sex, or
pretty much.
It is the taboo. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just and obviously that spins off into the whole monster genre. Like there's a whole subgenre of sex with gargoyles and sex with orcs and sex with demons and all these other things.
But I mean, yeah, sorry, finish your
and
thought.
Spider monsters.
Yeah, I mean, it does really seem to be, like I said, it starts with that kind of Buffy era around 1997. And then the whole the sort of any sexualization of a woman demeans her kind of thing. We're supposed to believe the Scythian is a great depiction of women in games. And then The Last of Us 2 came out and everybody had to pretend to be okay with it, that they weren't totally weirded out by how freaking gross and fetishy that was. But you do get Anita Sarkeesian posting her Captain Pike fan fiction and then insisting that wanting boys is bad. It cheapens you. And I think we get Twilight, 50 Shades, A Court of Thorn and Roses. Intellectually, I get it. You have to have the shame. You have to have the punishment. You have to have the, well, yeah, punish me in advance so then I can get the hot boy. And I've already paid my shame tax, so now I can feel good about it. Do I really feel good about it? I don't know if I want this hot boy. Maybe this other hot boy is better. Like it's just so
And this
Messed
is
up.
this is why I developed Calidus specifically to be, it's not entirely egalitarian. There are some patriarchal pockets in the society. There's some older men in particular who,
Calidus is a world where the ballroom or the salon is as much a battle arena as the gladiators fight in.
yes.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted the society to be, for the most part, egalitarian and also sex positive. You
Right.
know, you know, the romantic heart shape
Yeah.
we have nowadays, and everyone mocks how, oh, that's not what a real heart looks like.
Right.
Okay, so the shape of that heart, and you may know this, but it actually comes from the silphium plant, the
Mm-hmm.
leaves of the silphium plant,
Yeah.
which was the Roman birth control plant.
Yep.
This plant was so effective that the Romans used it to extinction, and it doesn't exist anymore. Recently, I was drawing a picture of Catherine, who is the character I have described as sex positivity and neuroses in a half naked package. I was drawing a picture of her drawing a necklace, and I doodled a heart, and I'm like, oh, that might be a bit too romantic for Catherine. And then I'm like, no, wait, this is the woman who owns a sex shop, and
Right.
the you know the heart is based off the silphium plant. Of course, she is going to wear a heart necklace that is shaped like a
Yeah.
birth control plant.
That
I'm like,
makes
okay,
complete sense.
yeah, no, I'm like, okay, that works. Catherine can have the heart. Also, probably I'd been watching too much Has Been Hotel.
Oh, yes. There's so many playing card symbols there.
Yes,
So very
so many
much.
hearts everywhere.
So, okay, we've sort of deconstructed kind of why everything, like, do you think that it is a, do women actually like this sort of danger, like they're not really even bad boys
No,
anymore. They're
I
sad, dangerous boys.
I think the more women try to tell themselves they don't like it, and the more society tells women not to want it, I think they want it more.
It just seems to get increasingly um fetishistic
Mhm.
instead of, like, I don't even know how to separate vanilla from kink anymore.
Yeah,
I've been telling a few kinksters I know, like, I don't know where the line is anymore.
yeah.
Like, furry smut is now mainstream.
Mhm.
Thanks, Tamlin. It just, it does seem like there's this real shame in kind of
Um,
wanting, I mean, they refer to him as a brute in it.
yeah.
And I find even the vampires are getting beefy muscular, which,
Which is interesting because, like, the whole point, the idea of the vampire as the Victorian aristocrat,
mhm.
especially, that's why goth Victorian is like its whole subgenre and style in and of itself. Look at the Crimson Peak.
But
Is it
that's the
Crimson
thing.
Peak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Goth boys aren't supposed to be look like built like Thor.
No.
And it's kind of clashing now that we get, I mean, okay, they've kept Alucard as very Bishonen,
Mhm.
but I mean, Daddy Dracula is very much sort of modernized,
But I
that,
mean, that's also coming back to the idea that we don't respect what is considered the more feminine power arena of the ballroom, of the
right.
salon. It's no, everything has to be brute force. That's the only power we seem to respect nowadays.
I think that's why that ballroom scene from Beauty and the Beast still hits, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Disney,
Yeah.
because she kind of didn't want to do it, but the minute she gets there and he almost swallows his own tongue, all of a sudden she's in control and she's wordlessly telling him what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that understood that kind of beast to puppy dog fantasy more than some of these other books do. Like, we
Yeah.
never get because it just seems that the minute a guy is awkward, he's undesirable, and I don't get that. I'm so the opposite.
Which is weird because like the adorkable guy is a whole thing in and of itself. Like
Yeah.
technically Eret would fall into that
Yes.
category.
Yes. That's why I immediately like, no, he's not a problem because
Mhm.
all the How to Train Your Dragon characters are some degree of adorkable.
Yes.
And adorkable, I get, because one of the things about romance, capital R,
Mhm.
is that it's feeling things and
Mhm.
the vulnerability that is required to feel things. To me, if there's no vulnerability, there's no romance.
Mhm.
And the problem with all these perfect hair, perfect body, perfect eyes, perfect, dangerous, but perfect, like we live in an age where male leads are described with the word perfect used in multiple contexts.
And like I think going back to A Court of Thorns and Roses for a minute, I think that is part of why Rysand is so popular.
Because he's
Is
just the most perfect man ever.
well, no, it's not even that. It's he has the moments where he's on his knees and he's broken. And he's unlike Tamlin in book 2, who is just trying to deny the trauma he's endured. It's Rysand is willing to show Feyre that he's affected and to let her see him breaking down. And I think there is the appeal of that.
Oh, there's an appeal, but he's still described as he's perfect with dark hair.
Oh yeah.
That's his original, well, not perfect, the most beautiful man she's ever seen. Like
Yeah.
there's no detail on that. It's just, and I do think if it landed exactly as intended, it just let the reader imagine the most beautiful man they'd ever seen. And this is the problem with adapting a character like Rysand. And I'm very, very worried that Ronald D. Moore is attached because Rysand is going to be Gaius Baltar, the most beautiful man in the world to Ronald D. Moore is Ronald D. Moore. He always casts somebody in his work that is him. So, I mean, it's going to be a younger James Callis. That's what, and we've rescued James Callis from that now because now he's Alucard. But it's just you really can't adapt the most perfect looking man you've ever seen.
And it's like if you look at the fan art, obviously the fandom has mostly refined it. They've mostly settled on this image of suave, pseudo Italian model looking.
I thought he was Captain Hook from Once Upon a Time at first.
Well, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean there are plenty of guys that can fill that role. He sort of goes from, you sort of see Robert Pattinson, you sort of see Tom Hiddleston, you sort of see a lot of those actors. We get into kind of a Henry Cavill jawline in some of the fan art.
See, at this point, it's like I have like this specific fan art in my head, but I'm like, yeah, no, that's what Rysand looks like for me. And
yeah, but I mean, no matter what, 80% of the women who love these books are going to be disappointed when they announce the casting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, they should make it animated.
Oh, I agree.
Which, like, honestly, there was talk that the show wasn't moving forward, and now it seems to be like it's on the back burner, although
he's totally the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Totally.
No. Outlander is I see how you could connect Outlander and A Court of Thorns and Roses, but they're not the same.
No, it's so much feminine anxiety made good.
Yeah,
and
no.
you can't have a male showrunner on this property. They just don't understand feminine angst.
No. And Sarah J Maas is a suburban. See, here's the thing. I know that historically Judaism runs through the mother's line. So like it feels weird for me to say she's Jewish.
Oh my God, she is? Okay, I didn't want to stereotype.
No, I thought I told you this. So her father was Jewish, and part of why she gets accusations of anti-Semitism is because she wrote like an essay about exploring her own Jewish heritage and how she was proud of her grandmother's service in the IDF.
Okay, there's
50
nothing
years ago.
wrong with that. It's the
Yeah.
whole, I hate my family. I hate my family. I hate them all. I hate them. Oh my God, I hate them so much. They left me. They did. I have to save them. I hate them. I hate them. That, like,
Yeah, no.
I'm like, oh my God, I am getting like a trauma response because this is like dealing with my fucking family. You know, like it's just that makes so much sense.
It's also one of those things where, especially if you've spent any time in fan fiction, there is a tendency for writers who don't put in as much background foundational work as they should to just layer on the trauma. Oh God, what was it? The third Crescent City book, someone said the love interest is proof that good looks and a traumatic backstory do not give you a personality.
Right.
And like, yeah. Rysand has a personality. It's smooth talking, super powerful.
Oh, that's kind of full of shit, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's decidedly full of shit.
Yeah,
he's Gambit with darker hair.
Yeah, no, he is covering up his trauma with that smooth talking facade. And I think that's part of the appeal of Rysand is it's that reveal of you're the one person, Farah's the one person, but you're reading. So like, you're Farah in this case.
Oh,
not you.
I'm not. That's the problem.
That's why I was like, not you. Not you,
I'm Lucian. That's the problem. I'm like, you, sir. I understand you. You know, because he's the one that got booted out because his entire family hates him and tried to kill him. That I understand.
Yeah. So it's like, but Farah's the one who gets to see the vulnerability. And it's like, we've talked about before the idea that the appeal of these bad boys, the jerk love interest, particularly. I won't.
Is Rysand a traditional jerk love interest? I don't get that from him.
He twists her broken arm later in the book.
I guess I'm at this point, it's so, par for the course.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm also like, he is a fucking fairy who is trying to save her life. And she is so fucking stubborn. She won't, and especially since she's been biased against him by Tamlin, she needs someone to save her life. And he is trying to cut to the chase. I'm like, is it good? No. What if that actually happened in real life? Raging red flag. But if a fairy is like, fuck you, you need to take my help, I'm going to twist your broken arm in this extreme situation, I'm like, I don't blame him.
Well, that's the problem. She is so obnoxious. You don't blame them. And I find myself going, no, that's not okay. They're still violent, but she just she's 19, but she's insufferable even for a 19-year-old.
Okay, but you also cannot hold fantasy characters in an extreme situation to the same. Oh God, I'm apologizing for Akatar at this point, but you can't hold them to the same standard of our modern life.
But isn't that the same thing that feminism says about video games? No, you have to. It has to reflect real women.
Which is bullshit.
It is bullshit. But that's the thing. That's why I'm glad I'm reading these books. Because...
But the problem is, the more you push this idea that, it has to reflect real life, it can't be idealism, it can't be escapism, the more stellar blades we're gonna get.
Right.
Because people are going to say, fuck you, I do what I want.
You know what I will give Stellar Blade? The one thing I will actually argue, good job, Stellar Blade, on feminist grounds. No, really, seriously. Hear me out. What's it? God, I just cycled through so many video game women. Eve has a ton of junk in her trunk. She's fairly well endowed, but she's really bottom heavy. And the clothes, when she's wearing a sweater or a denim skirt, they actually put it on the model with proper weight of the fabric. So it
So that thing
adds an
they
inch or
didn't
two.
do with Shadowheart.
Yeah. Like there's actual bulk to the clothes. So it looks like I look at that and go, yeah, that's what clothing does to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of a sudden it's adding 2 inches all around and in places that get me called fat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at this and going, okay, this is an idealized character, and all of the costumes are a different kind of sexy.
Mm-hmm.
But they clearly didn't put anything in to make her look ugly. It's not that kind of game.
Yeah.
And yet they weighted the clothes properly. And it's like, that's all I ask.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The impression I get is this is a game, and I say this neutrally.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game that is made to appeal to the male gaze. But that's not a bad thing.
I
Not automatically.
I actually think it's sort of an extension of face culture, because the young guy, Adam, the few times you do see him, he's kind of pretty as
Mhm.
well. You know, and I say that because I look at him and I get the same kind of, oh, as I do when I see actors that are popular. You know, that very boring, might be Latino, might be vaguely Native American, might just be Italian.
Just enough that they try to check off a diversity quota.
Well, he's not dissimilar to the way I've seen fan art of Rysand.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that kind of vaguely Mediterranean,
yeah.
just enough that he's not white.
Yeah, I mean, he's a complete douche.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like there's nothing in this game that is off-putting to
Mm-hmm.
women, and that they sold it based on scandal. Good for them,
Make
because
your money.
they would have had a really hard time cutting through with a Bayonetta meets a bunch of other things with very few truly original ideas. It rips off most of the early story from Nier Automata, like just shamelessly.
And like, here's the thing: the artist said, "Look, we know people are mostly going to see her from the back, so we
Yeah.
put a lot of attention to detail in the back." And I'm like,
And of
I'm
course,
an artist. I get this. I
but
respect that.
what did the censorship types freak out over? A lace panel in the front.
Oh my god.
I maintain, though, they were telling the truth, that design that ended up on the disc copy was not the original, because it's boring.
Yeah, it's what's supposed to be there. And even then, it is 3 inches of lace. What the fuck is wrong with you?
But
And like that's the thing. When I see guys get so up in arms over that, that's when I'm like, fuck it. Take away all the pretty women. No more nudity.
Right?
No more escapism. You people suck. And your entitlement to women's that's when it pisses me off. Is when it turns into entitlement to women's bodies.
And I think that's where some of the Akatar stuff comes from as well.
Mm-hmm.
That even though Tamlin's a shitheel, he doesn't act entitled, at least not most of the time. He's trying to fight that sense of entitlement.
Okay, just for the record, he's trying to use her to break a curse.
Well, yeah.
And like, it's Beauty and the Beast retelling. So it's, the evil villain.
Creepy. He's freaking creepy from the jump. I don't care how many muscles or layers of gold something you have in your hair and skin. Tamlin's fucking creepy.
He is.
And
it's like that's why I got
that.
That's why I got to the end of the first book and I'm like, wait, why is she going with Tamlin? Go with Rysand. Rysand is a much better option.
But do you think that he's deliberately creepy? Because I don't.
No.
Yeah.
And like, that's one of the things is there are a lot of creators who I would love to sit down with and like ask them questions and pick their brain. The problem is I know a lot of the questions I would ask, they wouldn't want to answer honestly.
Right.
And it's like, ironically, Vivzy Pop would get like the least grilling, like
because she
with
said it all already.
well, it's not even that. It's just with her, I'm like, I respect what you do. I'm just super curious about your process. Whereas people like Sarah J Maas and Taylor Swift, I would grill them. I'd be like, okay, but what about this fact? What about this? It's like Vivzy Pop makes horror. It
See, that's the thing. I find Alistair an incredibly romantic character
I
in
can see
Has
that.
Been Hotel because, okay, come on. He worked in a Louisiana jazz bar in the 30s, right? And everything they've hinted at, the whole Wendigo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get this sense of him that he crossed a line and he just kept crossing.
And here's the thing, his mother is in heaven too. Like,
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's one of those, I'm sorry, mother, your son is a sinner. And it's believed that like that's his one weakness is his mother.
Oh yeah, that's all over.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm actually delighted that she made Alistair ace because in so many other books, in so many romance books, especially dark romance, he would be the love interest.
Well, that's what it originally was supposed to be, and they changed it, and I'm so glad they did. Because that's an example of a character I think is more romantic because his motivations are not typical man grunt, like with all the really messed up sex going on in the rest of that world, you can kind of sit back and no matter how evil he kind of is, it's elevated because it isn't just why because men are horny. I'm so sick of that. It's not true.
Yeah.
One of the things that really disturbs me about a lot of this romance is it does really go back to that and the Buffy continuum again. That when it comes down to it, men just can't control themselves. They will hit a point where either, you are so desirable they can't control themselves.
And that's I was reminded of this last night. That's a common trope in romance where it's if I start, I won't be able to stop. So make sure you're certain before we go forward. And like, it's supposed to be romantic. It's supposed to be this overwhelming desire.
Right.
But it's still that implication. That's like, what if she changes her mind?
You can't change your mind once you start. It violates consent is ongoing.
Exactly.
And the thing is, in order to have a successful long-term relationship, that can't be the standard. And I do think that we need more examples of communication before sex and show it to be sexy and show it to be romantic and how those sort of expectation conversations can go. Guys can't mind read, and I'd prefer that there be more that is closer to real life. Because I mean, I do understand why men have the same reaction to Twilight and A Court of Thorn and Roses as you do with the bunny suit and Stellar Blade. Like, just no, take away all the sexy women.
The bunny suit is not the problem. It's the
reaction.
It's the reaction. Yeah. On top of some other things I saw around the same time that I was just like, get over yourselves.
Well, I felt that way about Rysand. But every time you mention this dude's name in a group of women, all of a sudden it sounds a bit like, when you run through the seagulls in the beach?
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden it's just like it's dolphins meet seagulls. It's like, what is going on with this character?
It also comes back to this idea of this super powerful man who can have anything he wants, and he wants you.
Yeah, well, I know that's never gonna happen. So
Mm.
like that is no, it just doesn't work that way in real life. I,
And
I
like,
knew very early on that was my sister. That's not me. It was
I'm not
drilled
that
into
girl.
me. Yeah, oh yeah, that song, see that song really hit.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
eh,
I remember the first time I heard that song, I had to repeat it like twice, and I was just
Yeah.
bawling my eyes out.
Oh, that song hits. And everybody
Mhm.
focus on Defying Gravity, but Not That Girl
Mhm.
kills in Wicked. And
Yeah.
I do think that
Also,
that's
the fact that I used a fairly common phrase, but you picked up right away that I was referencing the song,
yeah.
I think that proves what a deep
Like
effect it had on
it's
both of us.
it's a beautiful song and
It
it
is.
is for every girl who's not that girl. Because
And
we all see it. I don't know if you saw this in school. There was this one girl that guys just did shit for. And I mean, my sister is that girl.
mhm.
People just do stuff for her. They
Yeah.
give her things. And I am not that. I am the one where when I was in high school, people said, Leanna, if you were a girl, what would you think? And it's like, um, it's a good thing I already identified as Beast from X-Men on the inside.
Yeah.
Um,
And like, here's the thing. You know, I was visiting my boyfriend last week,
mhm.
and we went into a romance bookshop, and
Good man.
yes, and he sends me book talk jokes all the time, mostly to tease me. But he made a comment about, like, we were joking about boyfriends as we left, and he made a comment of like, well, yeah, only thing I'm missing is aesthetics, and I'm like, I don't care.
Mhm.
Because the qualities you do have are so much more important.
That's the thing that I get why men don't believe that women don't care because of what they see in romance
Mm-hmm.
genre. The same way women don't really believe that men don't care because of guys going to pieces over a fucking bunny costume in Stellar Blade.
And like, granted, I say that, but we also know how I draw. So, but I'm also very honest that, like, my books are idealized escapism.
Okay, the thing about Stellar Blade though is she moves and the way her boobs jiggle, it's like ow.
Oh God,
Like,
yeah.
oh, the boing going, the boing,
Oh
boing.
God,
Like, it's like,
no.
oh God, it's like third day of your period slow-mo pain bounce.
Ah,
And
yeah. No, it's
the only way you think that's sexy is if you don't know how much that hurts.
like, look, there is good jiggle physics.
Oh yeah.
There's just jiggle physics that I have been impressed by. There is some that I'm like, ow,
Well,
no.
it's better to me, too much movement is better than them not moving at all.
Yes.
Because if they don't move at all, I'm like, oh honey, your implant ruptured. You're probably gonna get cancer. But yeah, the I mean, there are certain outfits where it looks like her butt is melting. It's just not cute.
Yeah.
And it but I don't see any difference between that and guy with gold. Like, do you notice how every person has gold in their hair? They don't have brown hair. It's golden brown hair.
In
Or
Akatar.
yeah.
Part of that is just because it's the spring court. And so, like, everything is color
But
coordinated.
Feyre's hair is golden brown.
I forgot that.
Yeah. And I'm just like, fuck, what's with the gold?
Okay, again, if you've read Calidus, I'm not in a position to judge about gold.
But it wasn't gold everything. Like Heather's hair is not gold black.
True.
Right? Like that it's little things that I need quality in anything.
Yeah.
Right? If something is too stupid, like I think sorry song's boyfriend, you're gonna back me here. Warhammer is underrated in terms of romance for men. Warhammer 40K is romance for men. I don't care what anybody says.
No, I get it.
It is impossible to not be swept up in some of these. Yes, I'm substituting anger for a lot of emotions here, but we really know how he's feeling beneath that all. I find Angron a very romantic, tragic character in Warhammer. I just said that in public. Holy fuck. This is two women talking, all the embarrassment, because we are all the honest. But it's that Sturm und Drang, right? It's the waves crashing upon the rocks. There's more to romance than just sex and coupling off. And I do find that a lot of modern stuff doesn't catch that. A lot of the Marvel series miss that way, which is weird because they had it with Captain America. And then they lost it. They knew how to do it in Thor. They knew how to do it in Captain America. And then suddenly they started overthinking it.
They replaced, they had different writers.
I guess, but I mean, nobody thought Peggy Carter was diminished by that relationship. Nobody thought Jane was diminished by that relationship, and the one thing Chris Hemsworth does, I know a lot of people are really rough on him as an actor, but when he has to do those vulnerable scenes, I've talked about this before, he can go there. And that's a skill. That is a very vulnerable place to go as an actor. And you Ryan Reynolds can't do it. He can't or he won't.
I have a feeling that Chris Hemsworth is one of those people, those actors, who how good he is will depend on the writing he's given and the direction he's given.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he needs to be told what to do.
Yeah, and too many people do not understand how important a good director is to a good performance.
It's funny because one of the most movies that I found the most romantic growing up, again, confession time, was Edward Scissorhands.
I can see that.
Still, I argue Tim Burton's best overall movie. Now, because Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder were a real life couple, then both of them can self-direct.
And that's one of the things is Tim Burton is good at aesthetics.
Yeah.
From what I understand, he's not so good at directing his actors, so he needs actors who understand him and who can self-direct, like you said, which is why he just used Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter so much, because he's like, okay, well, they know what I want, so it's like things worked with them.
And Edward Scissorhands was kind of a twist on, it was another Beauty and the Beast type story, but it was a twist on the bad boy.
Yeah,
he actually wasn't bad. He was kind of innocent and sweet, but everybody assumed he was scary because he had scissors for hands.
And I mean,
so it was like Beauty and the Beast meets Pinocchio.
I mean, that is what the original Beauty and the Beast story is, though, because it's like the Disney animation may have given him an anger issue, but that's not in the original story. He was a perfect gentleman.
Just cursed.
Cursed.
Yeah. And it just sort of, what happened? Because they were using Johnny Depp's bad boy image back then to play him against type. Because it was Johnny Depp playing against type and Winona Ryder playing against type. That's why she's got that kind of peach colored strawberry blonde hair. Because she's doing not the goth girl. She's doing the normal girl.
Yeah.
In that. And it was just such a sweet movie.
Oh, yeah.
It was a nice little kind of twist on suburban kind of summer romance. And because, I mean, Tim Burton's fascination with the suburbs is one of those things I think that doesn't get talked about as much as the gothy stuff.
It's an understanding of the horror in the whole idea of the
uniformity. Yeah. Yeah. And that was the thing. He came and he had this art and he trimmed the hedges, and all of a sudden the suburbs weren't conformist anymore. And I thought that was great, and that's the sort of thing where now if you put that in front of somebody younger, they'd be, oh, he's creepy.
Mhm.
And I do think that not because awkward and creepy now mean the same thing to too many people.
Yeah.
We've lost the awkward boy romance.
Yeah.
And so we get this weird I I can't even think of a good Marvel romance past um series 3. I mean, they did an interesting retelling of MJ and Peter Parker, but it's not that classical tortured
It's
romance.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's acceptable
Tom Holland and Zendaya are much cuter as Tom
in
Holland
real
and
life.
Zendaya. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like their story is more romantic than, and I get it. They were trying to do something different. And I
Mhm.
do like what they managed to do in those Spider-Man movies is actually explain why her.
Mhm.
It's the best crack at Mary Jane that way in a long time.
I
But in
mean,
terms of it getting swept up in a romance, I mean, Legolas and Aragorn in Lord of the Rings have more heat.
yeah. No. I think I've mentioned before. I have a collection of like all these significant Mary Jane issues
Mhm.
throughout the years, specifically their relationship.
Yeah.
And it really delves into her background and the tragedy she's been through and
Mhm.
why she chose to become the life of the party
Mhm.
just as a mask. And that's part of her draw to Spider-Man is, we both wear masks. We're both hiding who we are in different ways. And that was my disappointment with Zendaya is it's like, and part
Well,
of it
she's
is,
not a Mary Jane. She's an MJ, but she's not a Mary Jane, which is
yeah,
why I'll give that a pass.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, I struggle to overlook it because I love MJ's backstory.
Mhm.
And it's something I would love to see tackled well because I relate to that backstory.
Yeah.
There are so many aspects of my own life that parallel MJ's that I would love to see that developed more, but we've never really. And even
Oh,
then, it's we haven't really seen that since like the 90s. We haven't really, it's just, oh, she comes from a bad home life. We
yeah.
haven't really, the comics haven't even acknowledged the nuance of her story for decades.
Yeah. I forgot one. The one that really worked for me, surprisingly enough, was Matt Murdock and She-Hulk in
That
the
worked.
MCU.
I
I
want to see,
thought, and I don't think we're going to get much more of it.
no. And like, I way back when I watched Thor Love and Thunder, I said I wanted She-Hulk and Hercules to get together,
Hmm.
but I wanted their story to just be that domestic montage in
Right.
Love and Thunder. I wanted them to just have a domestic bliss life being what they are.
Oh God, the romance elements of Love and Thunder. People shit all over that movie, but I'm sorry.
There
The
were elements.
awkwardness and then him reacting to her being sick and all that stuff, that worked.
Yeah. There and the ending where he says, "You do what I want. I'm not going to waste the time I
Yeah.
have. I'm going to spend it with someone I love." I'm like, where was this writing in the rest of the movie?
Yeah. Well, because they had to appeal, like you said, you can't make something for everybody. That has always
Mhm.
been the challenge
Mhm.
with Thor
Yeah.
is that you got the bro guys, Thor strong, Thor strong. And we know they exist.
Yeah.
And then from the comics, and then you've got the women who came in for the romance from the first film.
Mhm.
And you cannot keep those two bases have nothing in common.
No.
So the only way to create a Thor movie that's going to make everybody think it was just okay is to careen all over the place and have the butthead moments and than the romantic moments. And I don't mind that he's both.
Mhm.
I had kind of hoped he'd become less of
It-
a man-child, but I think
th-
that is partially the limitations of the actor.
I mean, there's also the writing, but I mean, there is absolutely a way to do the kind of stupid golden retriever romance hero.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Not
I thought
stupid, but you know
no,
what
I
I
get
mean.
no, because I'm thinking I saw Chris Evans as Captain America as kind of a golden retriever romance hero too, but he managed to have such a dignity in that
Mhm,
role, doing very little.
mhm,
And I do think that they made a mistake not stretching one more World War II something
mhm,
out of that IP. It really lost something because let's face it, after that, the primary romance in that franchise was Bucky's unrequited love for, Steve.
pretty much.
And then Sam.
Yeah.